There we
Okay. Yes, yes. Here. No, sorry, I'll start that again.
go. That's all right.
Yes, yes, we're going to be discussing cornerback prospects today. This is in anticipation of our mock draft coming up this week. No, we're both looking forward to that, Mike. We've gone through the quarterbacks. Now it's time to have a look at some of the secondary standouts in this year's draft.
Yeah, well, we go through the passes and then the players that affect the pass. Makes a lot of sense. As they're your sort of pet cats of the draft on the corners. You like a feline cornerback out there.
Yeah,
So
do
yeah, we'll
a
discuss.
cat-like cornerback with some
Yeah,
side-to-side agility. Yeah, nothing
yeah,
wrong with
yeah.
that.
So we like to go through the corners and the QBs every year. It's a bit random, but it's kind of our respective areas of speciality, I think.
Yeah, it's our shtick. And yeah, I mean, like no experts, but
Yeah,
you are listening to someone who I did call Devon Witherspoon as one of my as the funnest players I've ever seen. Had him number one in that class that panned out, but then I also said Ennis Rakestraw would be a fantastic NFL cornerback. And Mike, I don't believe he's got on the field yet for the Detroit Lions. So shows you how much we know, really.
yeah. Well, it's all a crapshoot.
Yeah,
Only 40% of NFL draft picks ever work out. So it's a
yeah,
it's a tough industry, but it's fun to talk about. So we'll get into these corners.
yeah, absolutely. Let's bring him up. And number one has been I mean, as the process has gone on, I think undisputed by most, and a relatively clear. I wouldn't say he's a complete standout for me, number one, but he is number one, and it's Mansour Delane from LSU. Started his career at Virginia Tech before transferring in his senior year. And yeah, I think he's a solid round one corner, almost 6 foot tall there, decent weight, should be able to hold up. And round one, because I project him as an outside cornerback, decent production. He had 8 picks in college. What you really love about him is just his how smooth and fluid he is in coverage. You put on some of the tape, and he's just very sticky on the outside receivers. Held up pretty well in the SEC. I think in terms of his positioning, I'd rank him the best of all the corners I've watched in this draft. Ball skills as well. He's probably joint best ball skills for me. He's able to really get his long arms out and reach around, bat down some balls, and also the picks show that as well. So physicality, as you know, Mike, for me, I'm always high on corners that can tackle and be physical, and I'm going to rate you lower if you can't. But no, he's a really good form tackler, actually. Only saw him lead with a shoulder once, and that was into a tight end, which you can't blame him, I guess. I mean, so if I was tackling someone bigger than me, I'd probably just take their legs, but the corners seem to want to throw shoulders into people bigger than them. That's just the way they do it. So that's yeah, positioning, ball skills, and physicality. I think he's the most rounded of the corners I looked at.
Nice. Okay. Have you got kind of like a scheme fit for him there? Is he more of a zone or a man corner for you in the NFL, do you think?
No, he's both. He can
Both.
do both well. Yeah, I just put
Team
him on the
versatile.
outside corner. He can lock up. I mean, I say lock up, but he can compete with their best receiver from the opposition, but also pretty good in zone. So yeah, I think he ran. What was he? What did he run at the combine? It was a good combine for him.
Yeah, pro
Yeah,
day he
four
ran a
three eight.
4.38, which is
Ah, there we
absolutely
go. Yeah,
absolutely within the benchmark there of a starting NFL outside corner for sure. 4.45, I would say. Anything above a 4.45, you're struggling, I would say, for gas at the next level.
yeah,
So he's done well there.
yeah. It reminded me a lot of watching. Oof, I forgot his name already. The lad who plays for the Eagles, Quinion Mitchell.
Oh yeah, Quinion, yeah.
Um, uh,
Okay.
yeah, they played him a lot in off man, but he was quick
Mhm.
to get to the ball and it was thrown. Also in zone, just very similar kind of play there for to Quinion when I was watching him. So yeah,
Okay.
I think he's a nailed on first rounder is Mansour.
Nice. There's a lot of off man in the NFL now as well. A lot of, with all those deep
Mm,
shell coverages. You don't necessarily have to come down and beat people up at the line of scrimmage like you did 20 years ago. So yeah, it's changed quite a bit.
yeah,
Obviously, in an ideal world, you'd like him to have another inch and another 10 pounds on him, but
mm,
it's just you can't have everything. From everything I've heard, he's an incredibly fluid athlete, and I think
yeah,
he's in the first round. You need to try and get it. You need to try and get on the fairway. we just watched the
Yeah.
Masters last week. You got to hit greens in regulation, Tom, and you don't want
Yeah.
to be picking people that
No,
you,
the thing about Rory is you got to hit the fairway.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. So you don't want to be picking someone in the well, most likely for Mansour. I think I'd imagine he'll be a top 15 pick somewhere. Maybe probably starting with the Chiefs at 9 for him. I would
Mm.
guess is his market.
Yeah, for sure. And I suppose we should say we're not discussing all secondary players because there are a couple of standout safeties, but
Yeah,
I think enough's been said about the safety, so it's kind of fun for us to just look at the corners in this context.
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, those safeties will be, in the top, maybe top 15 people are projecting as well, which is pretty impressive.
Okay.
All right, number two. Number two, we're going to move on to my second, which is D'Angelo Pons.
Oh, D'Angelo.
Yeah, one of my darlings. This has come as no surprise to you. I've been going on about Pons ever since the Indiana Hoosiers playoff run when I got a look at him in 4 games in a row. And that was one of the reasons I ranked him. Just super big game mentality for Pons, affecting plays in both the run game and the pass game in the college football playoffs. Um, Now with Pons, he is short, so he's a slot cornerback for me. He's got a round one, round two grade for me. We have seen teams take players like this at the back end of the first round, but I'd probably expect him to go on day two. But he's done enough to warrant that 1-2 grade for me. He weighs the same as Mansour Delane, so he's got a stout frame, and that showed up a lot in his run support. He's a very good tackler. Famously coming with some huge hits in that Alabama playoff game, really getting the team fired up there. And let's have a look at this production. Excellent production there. 8 picks in just 3 years. Brought over by Signetti from James Madison, and then really thriving in Indiana. They played him a lot on the outside, a lot of zone defense for Pons. I don't see going man against a slot being too much of a problem for him because he moves pretty well. Not quite as good as Mansour Delane. But his ball skills, probably the best ball skills for me, actually. If you have a look at some of his tape, the way he can catch and twist his body around and some of the picks he had over the last 2 years at Indiana, very good with the ball. And probably the best tackler for me in the class as well. So, yeah, it's no surprise why I love him. Just probably not that elite size. You can't really take him in the top, 20 at that size. The height will dictate that, but otherwise, a very good slot corner in the NFL for me.
Yeah, and I think there's teams just from listening to what you hear out there on various media outlets and that the general gossip before the before the draft starts. There's teams that what I've heard is there's teams that still like him on the outside as well. They want to try him
Mm,
outside,
nice.
a bit like tackle to guard. They're going to try him at outside corner, let him fail there, and then bring him inside. You can see with those TFL numbers
Yeah.
that you could have a very active nickel defender there, somebody that can come up and play the run and blitz the quarterback as well. In the modern NFL, we've just seen how invaluable that is to be scheme versatile like that and have be able to perform a lot of different roles. That Indiana defense was watching Carson Beck's tape in the national championship game. They were an absolute nightmare. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
he was playing a lot of zone, but then they will come up and man to man you, and he never, a very limited sample size that I've seen of him. He never struggled in man against anybody, ultimate competitor. So um,
Yeah.
I, I think of all these players, he's probably the one that I've seen the most of, not looking at them in the same depth that you have. And I think he's a player that if he ended up in my on my Eagles roster, I'd be
Mm.
very pleased about it. But I don't think he'll be there for the Eagles' second round pick. I agree with you. I think someone will come up in the early second round, late first round, and take a chance on him because he's no, he's an absolute freak athlete, even though he is slightly undersized.
Yeah, yeah, and it's yeah, playing him up there is useful. I mean, some of his picks came off him just diagnosing screen passes, just flying out and picking up screens. Um, he had the first play of the game in the Oregon playoff game was him taking a pick six. So yeah, he's going to impact the game no matter where he is. It's interesting you said about him playing outside, kind of a bit like Mikey Samra still, who
Mm.
I nailed on as a slot corner, but he's actually done pretty well when they put him outside. So. That's not a bad comp there actually.
Yeah. Well, B, I think you'd certainly want to, at least when you get him into training camp, you want to see if he can survive out there
Yeah,
against bigger. But if he's just getting boxed out by your third, fourth receiver on the depth chart because he just can't handle the
yeah,
size differential, then move him into the slot, move him into a hybrid slot safety kind of role, a bit like Buda Baker. I could also
yeah,
see that kind of role for him where he can just get down around the line of scrimmage and affect the game. That's kind of his worst case scenario. And
yeah,
then best case is he can survive outside and be a starting corner for you, which would be the dream, obviously.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, on to number three. On to number three, and it's going to be Avion Terrell from Clemson.
Okay,
Has a
nice.
brother in the NFL. So perhaps no surprise that he's a highly talked about prospect here. Again, a little undersized, and yeah, for me, this is where the drop off starts. I don't like saying anything too negative about players, but I think I had Pons and Delane quite comfortably as my one and two, and the other two guys are a bit of a step down. So a second round grade here on Terrell. Um, decent enough size. Again, with these corners, we're not seeing any standouts in terms of over 6 foot. But ran a pretty unconvincing 40 as well. So that's why I think he's going to drop. But if you turn on the tape, he does play pretty well. He's had good production at Clemson. Maybe not the ball skills of the other in terms of the interceptions, but he's batted down plenty of balls and he's able to stay pretty sticky to receivers on the outside. Especially competed against a number of SEC teams in that Clemson schedule the last few years, and he held up very well. Those are some of his best games, actually, thinking back to the LSU game where he had a good pick there. And yeah, I think he can play on the outside. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't try him on the outside. I think he's pretty good in man coverage. Physicality, yeah, it's not an issue for me either. He probably doesn't have quite the tackle technique of the other two, but he's come up and he's forced a few fumbles in his career. So yeah, I think he's a pretty nailed on second round pick for me.
Yeah, and I think with the 40, that's where I'll end up by all accounts now.
Yeah.
I think he was at one point, I was even seeing him mocked to the Eagles at 23 at the back end of the first round.
Hmm.
But that's not gonna happen anymore. I don't think with the 4.64. I think in his defense, I think he's been struggling since the end of the regular college season. He's been struggling with a hamstring tear, I think.
Oh
Or a
yeah.
strain or something like that. So I don't think I just listening to Daniel Jeremiah's conference call that he did the other day. I don't think that is really about. I don't think people are necessarily buying 4.64 as his absolute top end speed. Like the film looks faster than
Yeah.
that, so that'll give him a chance to be a second round pick, get
Yeah.
on a roster, and go in and compete on the outside, as you say. But if he does need to move inside, like that'd be a hell of a player to have as your slot corner. To be, it's you
Mm.
stick him in there and you just never worry about him because he will tackle, and he is a bit of a ball hawk as well. He does make plays on the ball.
Yeah.
Let me see. I've seen some highlight plays from him. Yeah, only 3 picks, so not necessarily being born out there, but you can see the sacks and the forced fumbles. So there is ball and passes defense in
Yeah.
2024, like the entire Clemson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking about. Yeah, definitely the when I was saying about the hand skills and stuff, didn't quite have the ability to bring in those balls like the other two we talked about, but
yeah.
he defended enough passes and some big special teams plays for him as well, which is not to be understated.
Yeah, and you've got to play if you're going to play that position. If you're going to play nickel corner, you've got to play teams as well to a good level
Mm.
to have a long NFL career. So, yeah, a lot of encouraging stuff for Avion Torres. And as you say, the bloodlines. I mean, it's going to get him drafted high. His brother's
Yeah,
a brother AJ
of
is a
course.
standout corner. Um, so yeah, I think you'd bet on him being a decent professional. There he is. Look, the
No,
gorgeous
running free.
Clemson Tigers. Um, okay, so who is your number 4 corner then,
Yeah,
Dominic?
I think shouldn't come as any surprise, but McCoy from Tennessee is going to be the fourth.
Dane
Gerard
Brugler,
there, or Jamod. What's it?
Jamod, yeah.
Um, Yeah, I've really struggled with his name for some reason. Jamod McCoy. Yeah, they've got me number two. The problem for me is lack of production, and it's not his fault, but he was injured all last year. So he's certainly. I can just bring it up.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, we're having some minor technical issues here. Finally, I think it's doing it. There you go.
No, there he is. There he is. Okay. So look, very young. I mean, not even 21 yet. And as I mentioned, injured all last year. He was in his previous year. He did remind me quite a bit of Mansour Delaney in that he was able to get out there on the outside and be pretty fluid in coverage. The tallest corner we're going to discuss. I think for him, it's more the ceiling that's going to get him drafted high. I'd have him as a round two prospect because I'm just not a bit sure. But as we can see there, he's almost 6'1" and he absolutely flew. I believe he ran a 4.3 at the combine, but I don't know why that wouldn't be on there. I think he ran a 4.3. His pro day's got a 4.4 there. But yeah, I think you're just taking a chance and hoping he's going to come back from that injury. Otherwise, we'd probably be talking about him more as a first rounder because he does kind of project as a prototypical outside cornerback in the NFL. And a high ceiling, but yeah, you just worry about no football last year, how he'd make that transition.
Yeah, well, you're only going off the 2024 tape, which is always a concern. Someone that hasn't played football for that long, there should be, in most cases, a tax for that. So there might be a bit of I
Yeah.
think, to be honest, the amount of quality press man coverage that he played in 2024, you'd probably be looking at a top 10 pick for him normally without the injury.
Mm.
Uh, I think with that hit on that's just from what I've heard, from what people are saying about him. They had, kind of had him projected going into the without the ACL tear, he'd be a top tenner. So you're probably looking at his
Yeah.
range is somewhere between 10 and 32, somewhere in the first round, probably is what you hear. But I understand that having the reservations on him that it's quite the NFL's in quite an interesting period at the moment. The press man stuff that was so valued in the past. There's so much off and zone coverage now that he's going to have to learn some of the
Yeah.
nuance of that. Tennessee, both on offense and defense, are very run very collegiate schemes. Like they just him and Hood, the other corner that could potentially go in the first round this year from Tennessee. They just got up in your face every down and just played man coverage. And I think he'll have to have a bit more subtlety in his game than that at the next level. But by all accounts,
Mm.
people think he can do it. It would the injury would scare me. I have to say, not playing for a year, only running the
Yeah.
40 at your pro day. It's just like we were saying earlier, it's tough to take a risk in the first round on someone like that for me. But I guess I'm probably more conservative than some. Someone will definitely take a chance on him. I think in the first round.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm the same as you. It would surprise me if he was picked there, but I would get it for sure. As I guess they're going to have their own doctors look at him and assess him. So if
Yeah,
the medical's fine, then we're not privy to that.
yeah, no problem. I think we'd be
But
remiss if we didn't
no,
mention
sorry.
Hood as well. Now, neither of us have Colton Hood, McCoy's Tennessee teammate. We'll just put him out there. I know you haven't studied him in detail, and I've not really seen any of him, but the buzz on him is that he's generally speaking um, a very similar product to McCoy, just with a bit more roughness around the edges, not as smooth of an athlete. But and not you can see that represented in the 40 times, not quite, and the jumps. He's not quite as athletic or as big as McCoy. But I know
Yeah.
people are very high on Colton Hood. Some people are, so it would not surprise me to see him sneak into the first round, even to be honest. Just from what you hear. But there's always surprises every year. He might fall into the second round. But yeah, I just thought I'd give him a shout out because despite not knowing a lot about him, I do know that there's a lot of buzz around Colton Hood. So I just thought we'd put that on the radar. There.
No, no, very good and warranted, for sure. So, I mean, there's certainly a world where two or three of these guys could go in the first round. Probably wouldn't surprise me. But
Yeah,
then that I could also see Delane being the one and only one being taken in the first round. So it'd be fun to see how it pans out.
yeah, it's going to be an interesting draft because I think the O line. There's no superstar O line players, but there's a lot
Mm.
of just O linemen that could come in and start for NFL teams, which is actually a bit of a rarity. So I think you'll see a lot of O linemen go, maybe even 10 in the first round,
Mm.
is the rumor, 9 or 10. And that might push some of these corners down Tom, you'll be licking your chops at this. Maybe push corners down to the Chiefs at 29. Are you
No.
29?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, if Colton Hood was still on the board or McCoy at 29, you'd have to think the Chiefs Spags would be pushing for that.
yeah, yeah,
And teams like that down the bottom of the first round, good. So you're a good team already. Like the Seahawks having lost an outside corner in free agency this year. You'd think maybe someone like this would Hood or McCoy like an outside corner for them. So there's plenty of needy teams down the bottom, and these teams might get pushed down there due to the sort of the surplus of other positions in the draft. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up.
yeah, for sure. And a lot of buzz around Dallas going with
Mm,
a safety at 12, but
yeah.
they could just as easily snag an out and out corner there as well. So
Yeah,
that would be
that's a really interesting debate
mm,
that teams have because if you have a real first round grade on a corner, it's tough to take. Yeah, as good a player as Caleb Downs is, it's tough to take Caleb Downs if you feel like you've got a starting outside corner still on the board.
yeah,
You've really got to pull the trigger. So Dallas is a good shout. It's a really interesting. I believe I've got them there at 12, aren't they? I think I've got them in uh,
yeah.
the the peek behind the curtain here. I've got the even numbered teams, and Tom's got the odds. So yeah, I'll be picking for Dallas, which is always a source of amusement for us anyway, because I am tempted to just give them a punter in the first round. But
Well,
uh,
that's at least an off the ball linebacker, Mike. I mean,
yeah. Well, how many is it? Three in the last 5 years off ball linebackers for the Cowboys, something like that. Three and
oh,
six.
that's even more than I thought, which is insane.
Yeah. I mean, it worked out with Parsons. To be fair,
Yeah.
I mocked them for that at the time, and that came back and bit me. So, yeah, yeah, there you go.
All right. Yeah,
But
well,
yeah,
that sums up the corners. Check back in a week. We're gonna get the mock draft up and running in the week, so we'll have that as the next video up.
all right. Well, and I'll try and stop the share if I can operate the mechanism properly. And until then, until mock draft day, go well.
Go well.